Hello and welcome to Guitars for Bars. I'm your host James. Today we're going to start stripping down this Ibanez, what used to be an Iceman. Now to do so, I'm going to start with the edge. I've already worked on this edge here because I took some of that wood off. But I had an idea. I always have trouble holding it up to sand the edges, because you got one hand on the sander and one hand trying to hold the guitar steady, and it doesn't work too good. So if you don't have a workmate or a friend that can help, then here's an option. I've got 2x4s that I glued together. I'm going to put them on my workbench here. I've got some clamps from Harbor Freight. I'm going to clamp one on this side. I'm going to stand the guitar up in between them. It's a bit tricky, you gotta have another hand here. Square them up. Sorry about this. And then clamp the other clamp down. Now, as you can see, that didn't work too good. So, what I'm gonna do is get a couple pieces of rubber or foam, probably, to put in between there. But first, we're going to risk busting these two boards up, and I'm going to go ahead and put a clamp across the middle. It will fit. Hold on. I have to move this one and move it to right there. Okay. Now put this one across here and clamp these together. There, now it's nice and snug. Snug as it's going to be. Now that's going to hold it while I use my belt sander to sand this area here. Okay, there you go. That's what that looks like. There's a nice tip that I've never thought of before. I've done a bunch of guitars and I've never done that. I've always tried to hold on to them. So this should make life a lot easier. I'm working on my front porch, which I desperately need to clean up. You probably see the bins of recycled stuff back here that's got to go to the recycler, and my little table full of tools and whatnot. I got to straighten that up a little bit, but a lot of that stuff I use. So, all right, got my belt sander ready to go. It's got, I think it's 80 grit sandpaper on it. A little bit of traffic noise. When I get started, I'm going to turn the video audio down because this is going to be kind of loud. So, here we go. watch what I'm doing because I'm already cutting through it in some spots. And what I'll do is I won't get it all the way cleaned off with this. I'll get it almost all the way cleaned off, and I'll go back and finish it by hand and smooth it out and get rid of the spots like that. See, the sander's got the wheel here, and then there's a little bit of an angle, and then there's a flat spot. So the flat part of the sander only goes from here to here. So when I'm getting in the nooks and crannies there, I got to hold it upwards, so I'm just riding on this part of the sandpaper. Okay, it didn't take too long to get that far. So what I'm going to do is once I get all the sides done, then I'll do the front and back. And then when those are done, I'll go back and do all the edges by hand. That way I don't eat too much of that wood off with this sander, unless there's a spot I want to curve out a little bit more. So I'm going to go ahead and finish all this, and then lay it on its side and do one of the sides. Okay, I'm at the point where I got it done all the way on the outside, and I just got to do this little area in here, but it's too tight for the belt sander to get in there, so I got to use this little drum sander. And I just want to mention real quick that if you try this at home with your belt sander, you want to watch it because it does eat really fast. And if you're not careful, you'll make real deep grooves in it that you won't be able to sand out. So that's why I leave a little bit. I'd rather leave a few high spots to sand down than to have real deep grooves that I've got to sand everything else down to match up with the groove. Okay, here we go. And real quick, I just want to say, either sanding method you're using, the drill or the belt or orbital or palm sander, you always want to keep it moving. Don't sit there in one spot because you'll eat down into the wood. And I do have a dust mask on. When COVID first hit, I found out about it from watching Marfugal TV. So he's a good source of stuff that's going to be happening or is happening if you ever get a chance to watch that. That's Marfugal TV. Well, I went out and bought 200 of these things as soon as I found out it was coming. Okay, got that. Now I like a nice cutaway right through here. So I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I got this clamped in and I got the drum on here, and I'm going to take a little bit out right here. Not much though, because the pickup ring is going to be, you know, right there, and I don't want to end up going underneath where the pickup ring would be. Okay, let's look about as far as I want to go. It's very slight, but that leaves me about maybe an 1/8 of an inch between the corner of the pickup ring and that, maybe more like a 1/16. Okay, now we'll lay it flat and do that. And since this goes this way, when I use it, it tends to pull the whatever I'm sanding towards me. So instead of clamping it on this side, I'm going to clamp it on that side of the table. So I got to move the camera. You got to be super extra careful up here around the pickup in that thin part. It's real easy to eat through all that down into the wood and have a big old dip. So you want to make sure you keep your sander flat and keep it moving. You also got to keep your sander moving, because if you don't, the belt will get real hot. And a lot of the belts, when they get too hot, the tape that holds the belt together will come loose, and then your belt will fall off and it won't work right. Okay, that's on there pretty thick, so I'm going to stop this for now and go ahead and strip it the rest of the way down. Alright, I got it all cut down, and I got a few deep grooves here and there from the coarse belt that I've got on the sander, but I'm not going to worry about it because the hammered finish paint and the primer is going to fill all that in and create its own texture, so it's not going to make a lot of difference. If I was going to do a different kind of paint, I wouldn't have gone all the way down with the 80 grit. I would have switched to a different coarseness. And the edge is very sharp. There really wasn't that much rounded off on it originally, so once I took all the finish off, it left a nice sharp edge, so I've got to work on that when I work on it by hand and round that off a little bit. So there it is, all stripped down. I went ahead and hit the edge with the belt sander just because I wanted to speed it up. I don't feel like working for 3 hours trying to get all that stuff off the edge. I still got to go back with the hand sander, well actually with a block. I'll show you that later, and smooth everything out, round off those edges real nice. I covered the copper tape with a piece of painter's tape so that I wouldn't accidentally damage it, and I didn't get in there yet. I'm going to use the drill with the drum sander on it again and knock that little bit out, because I'm telling you, this paint was hard. It took a minute to get that all off of there, but that's what it looks like, and I'll show you the block right away. Okay, here's the sanding block I'm going to use. It's just a little piece of plywood. You see how big it is with my hand. The sanding paper extends a little bit over the sides and end. That keeps the block from marring anything. It is the 80 grit sanding belt. I was using Gator brand, but honestly it sucks. The Gator brand belts, the tape comes loose on them. If you buy them and you don't use them soon, just let them sit around for a couple years, the tape releases, and once it gets a little bit warm, a little hot when you're sanding, it just comes apart and your belt flies off, and you're left holding a nearly brand new piece of sanding belt with no way to use it on your belt sander. So I took some wood glue and I glue a little piece to a block of wood, and I use it more like a file until it is worn out, and I just pitch it and make another one. Okay, it's all sanded smooth. I got the edges rounded. The sides are pretty clean. Edges are pretty rounded off there. I still got to do the edges of the cavities. I usually use a Dremel tool with a little drum sander thing on that, and I also use an X-Acto knife or another knife to scrape. A little bit of the finish actually came out right here from sanding it, came loose, and I still have to work on that neck pocket yet before I do anything else to it as far as painting. So I'm going to stop right there, and I may prime everything I got and then do the Dremel tool stuff. That way I'm not handling the guitar too much, getting my finger oils into the wood. That way the primer and everything sticks good, because I can always just sand that a little bit and clean it off. So that's next. Well, I couldn't help myself. I went ahead and went over it with a piece of this 100 grit yellow paper that I like. A piece that was not quite as worn out as this one, but it wasn't a brand new piece, so it wasn't too harsh. And I went over the whole thing with that to smooth it out a little bit. Then I wiped it down with a wet paper towel and realized I've got these holes I need to fill. Well, 3 of them. These are the holes for the strap button. This was the original hole for the strap button, and it was super neck heavy. So I moved it there. It still was too neck heavy. I tried it there, still too neck heavy. I put it there, and that did the trick. So that's going to be the one I don't fill. So I'm going to glue dowel rods into these 3, and then I got to let that dry and sand those off before I can prime it.